Okay, so it's my great pleasure to be with you, and congratulations on the Aspiring Microbiologist Award, which is the first such award that Pharmig's given, and it was a hotly contested situation. So that's absolutely fantastic. And thanks for taking the time to join in this meeting. So I've just got a few questions for you. The first one I have is, why did you decide on a microbiology career?
So when I started in college, I went into general science. So I did quite a bit of everything across biology, chemistry, physics. I was actually very interested in maths and statistics early on. But I did narrow down to several biology degrees that I found to be the most interesting. Micro was obviously one of them, but I was also interested in environmental biology and ecology, and I did genetics as well. Microbiology did just stand out for me out of those ones. So I think learning about how important microorganisms are in our everyday lives and how, what a role they play, was mind-blowing at times right from the beginning. I did enjoy the lab work involved with micro as well. And microbiology is just such a broad field. It's relevant to so many different types of industries, from, say, medical to food industry to environmental. So it covered a lot of areas that I was interested in. And at that point, I didn't know what direction I wanted to go in terms of my future career. So doing micro kept a lot of doors open for me. So that's why.
Okay, now that makes total sense. So you mentioned about the different fields in microbiology and different applications. What kind of specific areas of microbiology have captured your interest the most?
So in college, I'd say I was most interested in medical microbiology. So learning about microorganisms causing disease, host pathogen interactions, all about treatment and control, prevention of infections, that sort of area I was most interested in. Also virology, which is a part of that. And at the time it would have been when COVID was going on, so it was all very relevant. And then also I would say pharmaceutical microbiology. So I would have learned more about that when I did my master's in biotechnology. And that's sort of where I am now, working in quality control micro. So I do really enjoy the testing that I'm carrying out currently. So.
That's brilliant. So which sort of areas or applications of microbiology do you want to learn more about going forward?
So right now I've been trained up on quite a lot of tests in quality control micro, so I do want to expand on my technical knowledge behind those tests. So the things like testing bioburden, endotoxin, environmental monitoring, absence of contamination, that sort of thing, to expand on that technical knowledge. Other areas I would like to learn more about would be growth promotion, method suitabilities, and I think that's something I'm hoping to get trained on relatively soon. And then also learning more about the rapid microbiological methods, I would say. So new technologies, automation, all of that's a very dynamic and relevant area right now. So
yeah, no, that's it's amazing. There's just so many things to get into, and pharmaceutical microbiology is so broad as well. A few minutes ago, you mentioned about when you took the master's degree in biotechnology. I'm just kind of interested in why you decided to do a master's and why you selected biotechnology.
So I knew that I was interested in working in industry as opposed to, say, going into academia or research based. So, and pharmaceutical industry, biotechnology was maybe coming from being interested in medical microbiology. That was the area I was looking at. So towards the end of my undergraduate degree in microbiology, I was looking at the different options, and I did feel that rather than go straight into, say, a job or even a graduate program, that doing a master's in something that was very focused on working in industry would benefit me a lot, and I could expand my knowledge a lot in that sort of area. One thing that did draw me to biotechnology in UCD was the opportunity to do a lab industry project as part of the degree. So it was getting that real life experience working in industry, but also it was part of my degree. And also biotechnology, there's a lot of micro in that. So I feel like it followed on nicely from my undergraduate degree and ended up being a very nice transition from microbiology into the master's, getting an internship and moving into the real working world.
Yes, that's a great kind of journey that you described. Yeah, some of the sort of work that you've done in with your current company in sort of helping to organise the way that the laboratory operates and and develop kind of more kind of robust processes and things. So I just wondered if you could just tell us a little bit about some of those things you've been engaged in.
Yeah, so when I did my internship with MSD, a lot of the work that I did early on was to do with organising the lab. So things like 5S, that would have been a big one. So making visual aids, posters for the lab, making sure all the areas were kept organised, neat, tidy, everything had been expired, that sort of thing. I am now a 5S owner for a part of the lab, so I have to stay on top of that and make sure that's regularly updated. And I would complete 5S audits for other areas of the lab as well to make sure we all do. So it's really important for even just routine testing, everything runs smoothly, everything's where it should be, just general organisation. Another thing I was involved in was the creation of standard work combination tables.
Okay.
So I did that as a part of my project for my master's. So, and I have worked recently enough with other test methods making the standard work combination tables. So it involves, you have your test methods, you're breaking it down into the tasks and subtasks, and visually displaying the workflow in terms of time spent, say, manually waiting and walking. And it really visually shows the sequence of events, and it's a very good tool for continuous improvement and finding the one best way of carrying out, say, a test method. And it's all about standardization of work. And so that was one thing I was involved in as well. Another thing would be updating standard work role cards, again with standardization. So I was involved in that project where I created these role cards for our routine testing and additional tasks. So it involved assessing everything that really needed to be done, how long everything took, and dividing that between role cards that analysts could take up on a day-to-day basis. And again, it's just things run more smoothly, it's organisation. Another thing I have done is created facilitated review recordings for some of the test methods that we do. So for carrying out second person review, and I've made recordings on basically the steps that are involved. So obviously you'll have your procedure as well. This is just another useful tool to refer to for people, either as a refresher or if they're not as familiar with the test, it can be a good to just give them another tool. So that's another thing.
Yeah, no, that's great. So, and I guess all of that fits into sort of like a lean lab kind of paradigm and things. But sort of briefly, how would you then say you take that and kind of emphasise the importance of right first time for a company like MSD, and what does it actually mean for them? So
right first time, lean labs, all that is really, really important. So lean laboratories is all about optimizing the overall process, and you're reducing waste, which can come in many forms. So wasted time, wasted resources. It's all about improving efficiency and in delivering your end results. So right first time is obviously very important, and I think having a lean lab promotes right first time. You don't want to be going back, making corrections or repeating work, because again, it goes back to waste. It's, wasted time, wasted resources. So that's why it is really important that you're fully focused on your job and, you have your procedures open, you're following them. And I think with lean labs, it's all about promoting this continuous improvement culture, and people have that mindset, you're continuously looking for ways to improve on, things that we're doing, simplifying tasks where they can be, and reducing waste and eliminating mistakes, I suppose. So,
and do you find it most people were receptive to?
Definitely, yeah. I think it's been so built in with everything we do. Things like 5S is like a weekly thing. There's so many tools, standardization of work. It's just been built into our mindset. So people are constantly looking for ways to improve on things.
Okay, that's really
and that in itself, it helps, with right first time and test when you're performing a test, it's easier because everything around you is well organized and it's.
Okay, now that's brilliant. I also see that some of the other great initiatives that you've done have been around trend analysis and things like environmental monitoring and utilities and things. So I just wondered if you could explain a little bit about how you approach the sort of trending and some of the ideas that you put into place.
Yeah, so most of the work that I have done with trending for EM and utilities has been more the collating of data.
Okay.
So I would do that on a regular basis, as would some of the other analysts. So I think with that, the approach I would have right first time is obviously very important. And also just having a systematic approach, because you can be dealing with a lot of numbers at one time. So I do like to take it in more manageable sized chunks, I suppose. So say, for instance, if I'm doing EM trending, I'll take, grade C contact plates for a particular week and work through it bit by bit. Also, organization of that data, having it very clear, laid out, is very important, and that as well is important when it comes to doing trend reports. I'm actually due to do my first trend report very soon. I haven't actually completed one yet, but I know for that as well, having it very clear, everything, being able to display the data in a clear layout, visually, graphically, is all very important as well.
Yeah. Okay. Now that makes sense. Yeah. And are there any like hints you can give to the audience about things to look for when you're looking at the trends and things? And
I suppose you are looking for any adverse trends, and different companies will differ in terms of like what is considered to be adverse, but it is all about you're trying to find things early on so that you can be proactive if there are potential adverse trends forming. So that's definitely an area I want to be more involved in when I do my trend reports, so I'll get more experience working on it.
Okay, that's brilliant. Yeah. Okay, so looping back to laboratory tests and things, which tests have you kind of come across so far that you say were more challenging than others?
So I do think that different tests come with their own challenges, but one that I would maybe say would be bioburden testing. And the reason I would say it would be because it has the tightest hold time from my experience. So if you are dealing with, say, testing a whole lot of product samples in different ways, there could be different dilutions, different volumes, different rinse fluids. When you have a tight hold time, you do have to make sure you're testing everything correctly, you're getting it done in the right time. So that would be one possibly. Another one may be endotoxin, and more specifically KTA testing, as opposed to if you're testing with the MCS. I think with KTA testing, you do have to have very accurate pipetting. You're making your standard curve. So early on, it can just take a bit of getting used to. There's more room for human error. Some of the other ones, one thing I would say about environmental monitoring, not so much the actual sampling. I think when you're going down to the manufacturing area, there's so many different points, that you're taking samples from. And as a QC microbiologist, especially when you're, early on in your career, you might, it takes getting used to actually find your way around the area and knowing what different equipments are. So I think that's one thing that definitely takes a bit of getting used to. And even like shadowing early on to familiarize yourself with the area can be very helpful. For that.
Yeah, no, that yeah, a lot of sense in that. And just taking that point you said about shadowing, obviously, training is important as well. So, just wonder from your experience, whether there's any kind of key points about training, particularly for some of these more challenging areas that you'd like to share.
So I think with training, having a good background knowledge on the test first is very important. So, why we perform certain tests, how they work before even getting into like these are the physical steps you need to perform. I think that's very important. So whether it's, an online presentation or an online learning first with like a knowledge assessment, I think that's a very good part of training and should be at all times, to give yourself that background knowledge. But then when you are being trained, being able to ask a lot of questions, having an open kind of environment, because, that's really important when you're learning. And then being able to repeat a test a good amount of times during training is also very important. I know different companies will differ in how many times they'll repeat the test, but I think the more times you can do it in training, the better, to make yourself comfortable with it. Also having someone assigned when you're first testing for the first time, maybe to support you or be available for questions early on, is also very beneficial. And I found from my training, having someone there, watching you do it the first few times can be very useful.
Yeah, so like a mentor.
Just for your first few times testing, just to make sure you're, not picking up bad habits early on.
Yeah, no, that sounds really good. Yeah, and the idea about doing it enough practices and things like that's great. Yeah. Okay. So there may be people watching who maybe still at school, college, university, who are kind of wondering whether they'd like to go into laboratory work, or I'm not entirely sure how to start, or whether it's for them and things. So I just wondered if there's any advice or anything you could pass on.
So I think be open to any opportunity that comes your way, for sure, definitely early on, because at the start it's all about gaining experience and, you never know, like I wasn't even sure in college, like what I would enjoy. And it's not until you actually get out in the real world that you really start to realize. So anything that comes your way, whether it's a job or an internship, it even gets your foot in the door in a company and you can get that experience. I think that's important early on. ask as many questions as you can, for sure, and just take in as much as you can. I think when you start in any company, a lot of the training at first, it might be more introductory. You're not going to be straight into test methods, but the more you can take in, that's like building your foundations and your knowledge, is really important. And also I would say networking early on, both, making connections within your team, but also other departments, because that can benefit you. I think the pharma industry is quite a small world, I've realized, and you do start to make connections, and that can be very beneficial, for your future career as well.
Yeah, so sort of networking and building contacts.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, brilliant. And then just sort of like when you've secured the laboratory position, sort of over like the first sort of 3 to 6 months, what are there any kind of tips or things people ought to be engaging with once they've started laboratory work?
I think definitely taking in as much of the early training, as I said, is really important. And asking questions is kind of a similar thing when you start off. Just ask as many questions as you can. And, talk to people even in the lab about their experience. People could have been, only there a year more than you, and they can give you advice. Like I spoke a lot with my teammates early on when I was doing my internship, and it really helped me a lot hearing their experience. And everyone's very open from my experience. Everyone's very willing to share their,
that's great.
Tips and tricks. So I think that's definitely a good thing. Making connections, again, it's a similar thing.
So just kind of steering off microbiology. Obviously, microbiology is really important to you. But what other things do you like to do in your spare time? Do you have hobbies and interests?
So I'm actually very into photography.
Okay.
Bit of a random one.
Yes.
Photography. I love to draw as well. I paint sometimes, kind of arty. And I do like to just be outdoors. I think, especially working in a lab, I work shifts, so I'm working 12-hour shifts. So try to get out and about as much as I can. And I like to travel as well, so a combination of all of that. Tennis has kind of been my sport pretty much my whole life as well. I used to play a lot more competitively when I was younger, but now it's more just a hobby when I have time. But even just getting out and about. So
it's all things to take you away from the fluorescent lighting and everything else.
Fresh air.
The last question that I wanted to ask you, which is like it's always like one of the worst questions. It's like, but it's kind of what's your sort of ambitions, and maybe in 5 or 10 years' time, what would you like to be doing? You still see yourself lab work or something else within pharma? Or
I definitely think there's a lot more I can learn in quality control, or even quality. Expanding on the technical knowledge. I would like to start taking on more responsibility in terms of maybe independent project work over the next few years. Maybe as well as testing, which is mostly what I'm doing now. Also to be able to train people in the methods that I've obviously been trained up across a whole load of methods, so be able to actually train others as well.
Yes.
So I guess, move up from the role of analyst in terms of 10 years' time. That might be a bit far.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm not sure, but I'm very happy with the direction that I'm going. So I will stay open, because you never know.
Of course, and that's the best way to be. That's that kind of one of the most toughest questions. But so they were the questions, and thank you very much for participating in this interview. And congratulations again on the award, and we hope to see you at more sort of Pharmig events in the future, and maybe hopefully one day presenting. That would be good.
We'll see.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.